This tutorial will be demonstrating how to use the Create Transport Disruptions data service. This is a service for local authorities and operators within England to publicise and manage their disruptions information. The service is free to use and provides the information open source through our API feed, and it exports the information in SiriusX format. This means that downstream consumers can ingest the API feed and present that information to their passengers. So if I click Start now, I'm currently on the pre-production test account, so you can see it says developer organization here, but your local authority's name would be displayed here. This summary dashboard shows all the live disruptions within your local authority account, any upcoming ones, and any recently closed ones. So if I click the ID of a disruption, this will take me to a summary of that disruption, so you can see the type of disruption, the dates that the disruption is being publicized, any consequences and social media posts that are attached to that disruption. If I go back a step, I'm going to quickly run through these hyperlinks here just to explain what they are and what they do. So the View All Disruptions link takes you to a summary of all the disruptions that are within your account. You can look at the status to see the status of that disruption. So for example, it includes any disruptions that are sitting in draft, any closed ones, any currently live ones, etc. You have the option of exporting this as a CSV, Excel, or PDF file. You can also filter this list. So for example, if you want to filter by a specific ID or an operator or specific services to narrow down that search, you can do that. The draft disruptions gives a summary of all the disruptions that are currently sitting in your draft. So you can pick up where you left off, maybe add a social media post, add extra consequences, review that, and then publicize it if you're happy with that. Templates are a feature that allow you to create disruptions for regularly reoccurring disruptions. So for example, if there's a marathon that happens once a year in your local authority, rather than every year having to create that disruption from scratch, adding all the stops and services that are impacted by this disruption, you can just create a template and then reuse that template every year as and when you need it. And then the latest addition is the Create Disruptions from Roadworks in your area. This pulls in information from Street Manager, which is a database of roadworks within your local area. So it's set to your NAPTAN admin area. So mine's currently set to the West Midlands. So you can see it pulls through roadworks within the West Midlands area. So if I wanted to create a disruption based on roadworks happening on Abbey Road, I could click that and you can see it's pulled through this information from Street Manager. I could click Create Disruption, and that's pre-populated a lot of the fields that are required for the SiriusX data format. So I would have to just decide whether it's a planned or unplanned. I'm going to click planned because it's roadworks. The description field is a mandatory field. So I'm going to just copy that across, but you could add extra information regarding that. And you can see it's pre-populated all of this. So then I can just save and continue and move on to the consequences, which is the second part of the disruption. And this basically describes the impact of that disruption to stops and services. I'm not going to continue with that. I'm going to create a disruption from scratch just to show you how to do that. So if I delete that for now and create new disruption, as mentioned previously, all of these fields are mandatory for the SiriusX format. So I'm going to decide whether it's planned or unplanned. I'm going to click planned for the purpose of this tutorial. And then for summary, I'm going to put roadworks on road Y. And then in terms of description, I'm just going to copy that across for now, but you could, as mentioned previously, add extra information. The associated link is an optional field. You can, for example, add your local authority website or maybe a link to your One network, and that will be displayed to the passengers by downstream consumers. And then the reason for disruption is a set list of reasons. So I'm going to click roadworks. This should cover any and all reasons for a disruption, but if you do find that your reason is not included in the set list, please just reach out and we'll work to add that to the list. And then the next part is describing the dates of the disruption. So the first start and end dates are when the disruption is actually live and happening. So you can either, if it's a disruption that started now, you can click now. And if you're unsure of the end dates, you can click no end date time, and that will remove the end date field. However, for example, in the case of a roadworks, you may know weeks ahead when the disruption is happening. So for example, let's say the roadworks start next Sunday at 9 a.m. And I know that they end the following Saturday at 5 p.m. That gives information about when the disruption will be live. The publication start and end date are when you want those downstream consumers to publicize that information to passengers. So if you want to give them fair warning, so that they can make alternative arrangements, maybe you want it to be publicized a week or two in advance, you have the option to do that. So in this case, I'm going to say that I want it to be publicized from tomorrow at 9 a.m. And then you have the option of adding repetitions. So you can have either a daily or weekly repetition. And then also you have the option of adding another validity period. So for example, if a disruption happens only overnight, you can add that extra level of granularity that way. So I'm going to save and continue. And as mentioned previously, move on to the second part, which is the consequence. So there's 4 different types of consequences. Services would be used, for example, let's say there's a full service or services that are impacted by this disruption. Network-wide would be, for example, there's a major weather event that causes all services within your local area to be impacted. Operator-wide would be, let's say, an operator ceases trading and pulls all their services. And then finally, is stops. So let's say roadworks block access to a specific stop. The most commonly used ones are stops and services. However, I will be running through all 4 in this tutorial. So if I start with stops, now if you know the name of that stop, you are able to search that stop up. However, if you're not sure about where the stop is or what the name of the stop is, you can search up using the interactive mapping function. This pulls in stops from using the Naptan database, and it's set to your Naptan admin area. So mine's currently set to the West Midlands, so it will only pull through stops within the West Midlands. So if I search up Mandra Centre in Wolverhampton, and then let's say I go to Lichfield Street, and let's say I'm not sure where the stops on Lichfield Street are, I can draw a polygon on the map, and that will pull through any stops within that polygon. As you can see, select all stops, all 3 stops are pulled through here. Now, if I just want one of them, I can just remove them, and now it's just pulling through Princess Street. So the next part is the consequence description, and this will be any advisory information you want displayed to the public. I'm just going to copy from the disruption description, but you can add any extra information about the next closest stop, for example. And then the next field is whether you want it to be removed from journey planners. So if you select yes for this means that that specific stop, so Princess Street, won't be made visible by downstream consumers to the public. However, if you click no, the public will be able to see that Princess Stop is there, but obviously they will have the advisory note to say that the bus is not stopping there because of the disruption. The next field is optional. So if you know a rough estimate of the time delay, you can add that. And then again, disruption severity is a set list. I'm just going to put slight. If you're happy with that, you can either save and continue and then move on to maybe adding a social media post, reviewing your disruption and then publicizing it. You also have the option of adding extra consequences. So for each disruption, you're able to add up to 15 consequences. So for example, in this case, let's say a tram also ran through Lichfield Street. I can add another consequence and make the mode of transport tram, and then add a consequence that way. Or for example, if I want to add a service level consequence to say that the services running through that street are impacted, I can do that. I'm going to add more consequences just to show you service level consequences and also operator and network wide. So if I add service consequence, again, I'm going to put bus as the mode of transport. So if I click this drop-down menu, it pulls through all the services that run within the West Midlands area. Now, if you're not sure of the services that run through the specific street that the roadwork is happening on, for example, you can again search on the interactive map. So if I find Lichfield Street again, I can again draw the polygon on the map, and that will pull through all the stops and services that run through that street. So as you can see, there's quite a few services that run through Lichfield Street, and it's pulled through the stops again. So as you can see, it's mapped out the full services as well as there's 3 stops. So if I remove the stops right now, this is saying that the full services are impacted. So if you want a service level disruption where you're just saying that there's a specific disruption that's impacted all of these services, and there might be a delay or they might be cancelled, for example, you can do that. Or in our case, if you just want to say that there's roadworks that are impacting this specific stop and services running through this stop, you can add the stop to the service level consequence, and that adds an extra level of granularity to say that the rest of the service is working fine, but just at Princess Street, there's a disruption and it's going to have an impact to passengers. Again, consequence description, you can add any advisory notes you want for the public to see. I'm just again going to copy from the disruption description. And then remove from journey planners, I'm going to say no for this case. Delay is an optional field. And then for disruption severity, I'm going to put slight. And then because this is a service level consequence, you have the option of deciding whether it's just the inbound or outbound direction that's impacted or both directions. I'm going to leave it as both directions for now. So again, I'm going to add another consequence just to run through network-wide and how that works. I'll save and continue. So this looks slightly different. In terms of the disruption area, this would just pull through all the admin areas that are associated with your account. Mine's just West Midlands, so I would just select that. Mode of transport, again, I'm going to select bus. Consequence description, as mentioned previously, any advisory notes you want the public to see. Again, I'm just going to copy from the description. I'm going to click yes for remove from journey planners and the disruption severity of this. So this is saying that the whole network is impacted. So I'm going to say that it's a severe disruption. So I'm finally going to add another consequence just to run through operator wide. So save and continue. Mode of transport again, bus operators impacted. You'd get a set list of all the operators that run within your local area. So for me, it's the West Midlands. I'm going to say Arriva Midlands is impacted. I'm just again going to copy across. Remove from journey planners, yes. Severity, let's say this is a severe disruption because Arriva has pulled all of their services, for example. And if I'm happy with that, I'm going to say save and continue. And this shows a summary of all the information I've inputted for this disruption. So you can see that it's a planned disruption, the dates of the disruption, and you can see all 4 consequences that I've added here. As mentioned previously, you can make changes as you want. You can click down and make specific changes to each consequence. And then, as mentioned previously, you have the option of adding social media posts. So here is where you would do that. So if I click add social media post, you would have already connected your social media accounts through the account settings. And we have the functionality to support Twitter, Hootsuite, and Nextdoor. So if I was to select the social media account through the drop-down menu, and then add the message I want to appear on the social media account or on the social media post. In this case, I'm just going to copy from the description. You have the option of adding a file. So for example, an image file that you want to share, and then save and continue. You can finally review the full disruption. And if you're happy with all of that, then you can publish the disruption. And as you can see, it appears here as roadworks on road Y, and the affected dates are the 25th of August to the 31st of August. The next thing to run through is disruptions that require your approval. So there are 4 different types of accounts on the disruptions tool. And depending on what level of account you have, you may have the rights to approve other people's disruptions. So if you're someone with an admin or a publisher account, you can approve disruptions created by an individual with a staff account. So you would get a notification, you'd click view all, and you can see all the disruptions that are awaiting your approval. So you can click the ID, again, review the disruption, make any changes that you need. And then if you're happy with that, you can publicize the disruption, or you can delete or reject the disruption. So the final things to run through are the account and user management. So this is your account settings. You can see what Naptan admin area you're associated with. If you do find that you're associated with the wrong admin area, please just reach out and we can fix that for you. You have the options of turning email notifications on. So if you would like email notifications for new street manager roadworks, you can do that. And also, if you're an individual with an admin or publisher account, you can set disruptions requiring your approval notifications on. You can decide whether you want us to source your information from either TNDS or bots. So you can toggle between the two and decide depending on what level of coverage of your information is on either data source. The next thing to run through is user management. So here is where you would add new users, and you can see the status of that user, whether they've accepted the invite, etc. So if you wanted to add a new operator to your account, you would add the operator's name. So let's say, for example, Ariva, and you would search the NOC up here. So you get a list of all the NOCs for operators within your area. So I'm going to say Ariva Midlands, and I would add operator. And then if I wanted to add a specific user, this is where I would add their information, the email address, and then these are the 4 types of accounts that are available. The admin account has the rights to publish disruptions for all 4 consequences. They also have the rights to approve disruptions as well as granting access to other users. The publisher account has the rights to create disruptions for all 4 consequences as well as approving disruptions from other users. The staff account is a slightly more restricted account. They are able to create disruptions for all 4 consequences. However, they do require approval from either an admin or publisher account. And then finally, the operator account. This is the most restricted account type. So this is for operators to create disruptions for their specific services or an operator-wide consequence. But it doesn't require approval from the local authorities. So anything they do publicize will go straight to the API feed. If I wanted to add a user to the Ariva operator account I just created, then I would click operator. I would select Ariva from the list and then send the invitation. And then finally, social media. This is where you would connect your Hootsuite, Twitter, and Nextdoor. And this means that when you publicize the disruption and you've attached a social media post, when that disruption is publicized, that social media post will be published to your account. So that covers the demo of the disruptions tool. If you are interested in gaining pre-prod access, so this is the practice site, which I am using right now. It's not live. Anything I create right now does not go to the API feed. So it allows you as a local authority or an operator to create disruptions and practice creating disruptions and navigating around the tool. Then please do reach out and we can set one up for you. And then when you are confident in creating disruptions, we can then move you onto the production site, which is the live site. And any disruptions you create on that site would be publicized to the API feed, and downstream consumers can then use that to make public to passengers.